All right. Good morning, everyone. All those who are going to attend and tune in. I'm back. Took a little time off. Some graduations. Kids transitioning from one school to the next. Some family issues, things like that. That's what kind of kept me away from the scene a little bit. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Jason Norris, member of Progressive Action, former Eboard member. I will be running next cycle for Eboard. I'm kind of upset I gave that position up running this term. I would like to be back there. I think it's important to have sound voices that are there specifically for the membership. But next time. What I came to talk about this morning was, most importantly, is tomorrow in the Bronx. If you're in the Bronx, if you're uptown, if you're upstate, northern New Jersey, Connecticut, if you have the availability, if you have the wherewithal, if you have it in your heart, attend the court hearing. This will be my second one going to it, and it's kind of eerie that you have to go and show force or have a show of force to kind of guide or force the hand of the prosecution against somebody. This many of us who live in the city know it to be true that it doesn't take much for the prosecution to come down on somebody else, but it seems that when it comes to the working public or the working people of the city, the agencies, if you're not law enforcement connected, you have to push very hard to get proper results, to get the ball really moving, to get the justice that's deserved. And I believe that it's the only way. I didn't know exactly how the system moved in regards to us until seeing it firsthand. And I saw that 2 years ago with Miss Tanya from the Q line. She works midnights when that banker assaulted her. And he walked away basically with a slap on the wrist because he was moneyed, And I don't think that was fair at all. But it kind of shows that if we didn't even show up, how would they handle it? How would they go about it? Would it just be a routine and it's somebody who, is money they can call favors and, then all of a sudden they're getting the best part of the law as the perpetrator? It makes no sense to me. If you're near the Bronx, if you have the availability, please attend. You don't have to stay the whole time. And if you can't stay the whole time, at least come and make your presence felt. It has to be made known that when it comes to assaulting one of us, it's a no-go. It's a non-starter for us, that it will not be tolerated. And if that's the case, if it will not be tolerated by us, we can't have anybody else participate or pander off of our struggle. I saw the video with T.O. Shepard yesterday, and he's absolutely right. I've been preaching the same thing. Once I became Eboard and kind of see how this thing functions and moves, and prior to that, I adopted that philosophy for myself for about 30 years. That if I'm out working, I don't care where I'm working, I have the right to return to my home, to my loved ones in the same condition I left in. You cannot mitigate all of these things from a grave the morgue or a hospital bed. There's nothing you could do about it. Not from those positions. But if you're able-bodied, you can fight. You can fight the company. You can fight. If you're able-bodied, you can fight. And I believe everything that T.O. Shepard did was his God-given right. I believe he was right for doing what he did. It was his God-given right. You cannot hire me as an employee and then lower my status in society and tell me that I have to be beaten upon so it's not offensive to your ridership. No. No. You mean to tell me that I have to come to work and cower in fear? And look how the rules are written. Look at them. They tell you to seek egress and run. Where are you going to run on the platform? It's not like you're down on the street level. Where are you going to run? You're going to run down on the tracks in panic with your belongings in your bag and everything? How? How is that possible? How is it that, and this is the problem, the rules are written in such a way where the ridership has more rights than the workers. They vaguely allude to you using enough force, but what distinctively is enough force? Right? Because somebody's enough force may be overdoing it. And somebody's enough force may not be doing enough. You never see the police go through this. You never see corrections go through this. Once they come on a job, they know their job is inherently dangerous. And it has become that in transit. Our job has become inherently dangerous. I remember when I was in high school and we had a plumbing program, we would go as an apprenticeship or like a work program through school to Creedmoor, to the mental facility. And remembering that, when I go to work, it looks like Creedmoor's front yard, to where they're just wandering aimlessly, occupying the space. And I have no problem with people being in the system. If you have mental issues, though, that is a different caveat, because there's no controlling you. And when something goes awry in your mind, we're not abreast of it. We don't know what's going on. We're not psychologists, psychiatrists. We're not mental professionals. But we still have to deal with you. And we're told to deal with you as paying customers, to have empathy. Right? And for the most part, everybody down here does deal with these people with empathy. All of the EDPs, we deal with them with empathy. But when my life and the life of my coworkers is now on the line, that empathy's got to go out the window, because somebody should have been responsible for this person and made a clear, distinct judgment that, you know what, this person is not to be in that position. They're not to be unsupervised. Right? You're right, Javon. Not only need stronger DAs, they need to push harder for certain quality of life, especially when you're talking about workers. We're not talking about two private citizens going at each other. We're talking about people who are representing the company, and that's another thing. After all of the things in our environment we deal with, we have the company side where publicly they say they sympathize and they won't tolerate it, but you don't see any muscle behind that. You don't get to see publicly, you don't get updated publicly that they've been engaging with lawmakers to change laws. You see it done on the union side, and I've seen that, even though, I may not agree with everybody in every administration, but that's something I've seen since I've gotten the job, that has been that almost one of the things that absolutely everybody agrees upon. That it's unfair and it's unjust for us to have a second-class citizen tag on us when it comes to justice in those ways. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. I remember when I was a child and I had a neighbor who lived down the hall from me. He was a bus operator. I've never heard of him being assaulted, coffee thrown on. I've never heard about that. It was just understood that you left the working man and woman alone. You left them alone. If you couldn't pay the fare, that wasn't their problem. You know, I see it openly now that people jump the turnstiles. I even have people asking me for a swipe and I'm in full uniform. How? We're not on our own. It's just that the powers that be have to be put in a position to where they have to serve us. We're not on our own. We just have to put them in a position to where they must serve us. Right? So if they must serve us, they have no choice. I also saw Chris's live, Mr. Drummond. I saw Drummond's live, and Drummond is right. You got a lot of supervisors. You got a lot of, the environment is caustic, and it's shown, and it's put in a manner to where, because we're in a caustic environment, the riding public doesn't care for us either, and we're the forward-facing entity for the company. We're the people who face the public. Train operators, conductors, bus operators, stations, car equipment, the cleaners who clean the cars. We're all forward facing. We're all in the line of fire. We all receive the angst of the riding public because of what happens behind closed doors in offices. They truly know that we do not create the policy, but they're put in such a position of anger that the moment they see the emblem, they lash out at it. It's not right. And I'm not justifying it. It's just that I understand the psychology of it, that it's triggering to them, right? They see this emblem and immediately they got to stick a middle finger up. They got to mouth the words, fuck you. Most say it out loud and don't know they know we're not responsible for these policies. We're not responsible for the turnstile. We're not responsible for the fare box, right? But those people are responsible for the spit in their mouth, the coffee cup in their hand, the bottle of urine, the cup of urine. They're responsible for their physical actions. They're responsible for all of that. We're not responsible for that. We're the victim in every sense of the word in that conversation, because we're coming to work just to do the work. A little bit more than a week ago, I had a train die on me. Train was brought uptown. It died on the way uptown. Coming back downtown, I come over the bridge. Just before I can get in the decab, the train dies. TSS O'Connor comes out there, meets the train. He walks out there. We inspect the train. We find nothing, right? We find absolutely nothing. But as we're going back to the head out, you got people who are inquisitive, or they're suspicious or nervous because we're outside of the station. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? I let them know. I don't want to be in this position either. As a train operator, I want to get to the terminal to get off the train. That's the safest place for me, is to be off the train. It's the safest place for the customers, is to be in a station and off the train. I don't want the train to die in between the stations and we going through a heat wave, and I don't want that. I don't want that. And I think in that situation, the way I carried myself calmed the people down, and I talked to them as I would want to get talked to. And I think that goes a long way as well. But that only can suffice for so much, right? That can only suffice for so much, because I don't know what's going on with the people when they're coming to and from work, what they're dealing with at home. I don't know what the last straw is going to be, but it doesn't help that the company we work for contributes to these things. It doesn't help at all. It doesn't help. Well, that's one of the problems, is that we're made to be the enemy, because the people who really make the decisions are not visible. They're not seen, right? So we're in uniform, and there's no way to miss us. You cannot miss that we are there, that we're frontline and forward facing. Well, it is wrong what happens. The MTA, I don't think purposely sets it up like that, but I don't think they do enough to negate that. I don't think the company is purposely setting up a paradigm for us to be jumped on. I just don't think they do enough to be proactive for people to know not to engage us like that, right? Because we're talking about the people who have sound mind. The people who have sound mind should ultimately be smart enough or have enough to know that we are not the ones inflicting or contributing to these things. We don't fix the rail per se. The rail is fixed on a schedule, and that's controlled by management. So you can't be mad at a track worker when the rail breaks. There is no foresight to go, that specific piece of rail is going to break. They're there to repair it. They're there to install new rail. They're there to maintain upkeep, but they are not the ones who set their own schedule. The same thing with the bus. If the bus goes down, the bus operator is not the mechanic also. The bus operator has to do the best they can with what they have. They inspect that bus on a 19A inspection, right? But they're not checking oil and transmission fluid. They're not doing all of that. They're not doing all of that. They can only do visual inspections, and whatever looks wrong or it's out of place with being the 19A, they can have it checked. And from what I've heard, there are a lot of depots where they're pushing people to fly through their 19A or to disregard it and to get out on the road. See, this is happening everywhere. All of these systems are allowing this negative energy or this cloud to hang. And a lot of times they'll use it to garner grant money and federal funds and state and local funds to say they're combating these issues, and they're not. If you look at it, that's how they get their monies, right? They'll pander using these hot button issues, but when they get the money, they don't allow the money to be earmarked in a certain fashion. Because if it was, it would be money to combat assaults. And that money would have to be used in that fashion. Right? Their money would be earmarked for safety, and it would have to be used in that fashion. If you look at how the money comes in and it kind of dumps into one pot, and the agency is trusted to use the money properly. A lot of the times that doesn't happen. If you've been here long enough, I believe my second or third year here, LIRRR was having a problem with MTA with their contracts. And MTA took a piece of the budget that they could manipulate and For a pick, we had war jobs. In effect, we had people who picked, or they didn't pick, but they were people like me, extra, and people who are extra list who were assigned to these war jobs to sit and to pick up work. And it wasn't even the board. It was just you're in a war job. And you were assigned to a line, and you were on war on that line. And what would happen is the dispatcher throughout the day would periodically drop a crew and activate the war crew. And activate that war crew for a trip. And if they had 2 war crews, 2 crews would get a break, and 2 war crews would be activated and work that day. That money didn't come from the regular New York City Transit Authority budget. It came from LIRR, because they were going through a contract dispute. Right? So the games and the politics is something that has to be watched. But I want to get back to what Chris was saying. You have a lot of supervisors who contribute to the caustic work environment here, because when they got the job, the work environment was the same. You had people who were like little Napoleons running around the property. And a lot of the times, people getting a promotion shows you exactly who they are, because now they can fully blossom and reveal who they are. And we do have quite a few bad supervisors. We do. TSSs, ATDs, TDs. You know, some people have bad days. I understand that. Some people have bad days. Some people can have a bad month. Some people can have things going on in their personal life and they don't know how to compartmentalize, and it bleeds over into the job. But then you have people down here who are horrible human beings. And if it wasn't just a testing to get the job, they wouldn't be able to get the job. Because from what I've seen and what I've encountered down here, a lot of people who run for supervision have never had it at their prior employment. Right? And it shows. People skills, terrible. Terrible. Leadership skills, non-existent. Ethical skills, non-existent. Right? You have quite a few people down here who, if this was a merit-based, if it was based on skill and comprehension, they would not have the job. That's just a plain fact. They would not have the job. And it's sad that those people feel that they have now made it, and it is now their turn to inflict upon somebody else what may have been inflicted upon them. But my whole deal is with that is, if I walk in the door as a man, you're going to treat me as a man. And if you do not, that is where we have an impasse. That is where we're going to butt heads constantly. That is where we're going to go off the rails. Because I come into work, and anybody can tell you when they come to Stillwell, I treat everybody with respect. I may not like you, but I'm not going to disrespect you. And there are quite a few people I don't like. So be it. If I don't like you, I don't find myself in your presence. I don't find myself around you. I don't engage you. You know. But if you got a question, or you need something answered, or you're having a problem. Good morning, Becky. How you doing? If you're having a problem, if supervisor, you can come to me and I'm going to fight for you. I don't care. What I feel about you has nothing to do with your ability and your freedom to do your job and do it in a manner where you can be respected, and to do it in a manner where you're not being beaten upon or beaten down. The way I move around the property, I want it for everybody. I don't care if I don't like you. If I don't like you, that's a character issue. Right? That has nothing to do with whether you're doing the job, or you should be able to do the job freely and unbothered. right? I have no problem with that. But I'll fight for you. I don't want to see your money tainted or pieced out. I don't want to see that. Because if it happens to you today, it can happen to me tomorrow. I'm not going to stand for that. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. You're right, Miss Hinch. There are a lot of bullies here. A lot of people, this is in some ways it's like high school. I normally refer to this place as the 13th and 14th grade. And it's disturbing sometimes. It's very disturbing. At all. We don't come to work to be treated like children. Well, no, I don't think we should just be able to survey supervisors on their first year, because as an operating crew and employee, you're surveyed multiple times during that pick we're in, when you're assigned to TSSs and TDs and you're interacting. They're writing reports and reviews on you maybe 6 times a year. But that's not there for supervision in the same way. Right? That's not there. We don't get to voice our opinion. Only time we can do that is through a G2 and action has to be taken. But it's too late because the injury's already occurred. What we do need is we need school car to be better. We need professionalism training, because there are a lot of people who never had this type of job or this type of responsibility. And there are a lot of people who inherently don't have it. That's not who they are. Right? I look back to what Chris was saying about how you have a lot of supervisors who are mean-spirited, and it got me to thinking that when you walk into a room, you can tell in that room who and how people are. When you walk into a room, if you walk into a room with good, inviting energy, people gravitate towards you. Whether you like it or not, people would look up at you and speak and greet you. If you walk into a room with very nasty, negative attitudes, people withdraw and they don't engage you. And you can see that. You can walk into any crew room and you can see who walks in with what type of energy. And you can see people gravitate to them. Even if they're brand new, you could just be released to the road and you walk in and you speak, hey, good morning. And people will kind of match your energy and double it sometimes, because they see how you enter a room and how you fill up a room with good energy. You're right about that. We're in a retiring cycle right now. I believe you'll see that in 2026, because 2001 was the first open competitive for train operator, and they had a very big, robust class, and you had classes thereafter. So you're going to see a lot of retirement. You're going to see a lot of change. I see a lot of people taking the job who have been recently hired. I hope they work out. I hope they do the job properly. I hope they change. Absolutely, we need to be respected more. But management doesn't like nice supervisors because it doesn't serve the purpose of what they're trying to do. You can talk to superintendents if you get a chance, if you can find one who you have a rapport with. But their whole stance is to continue what has been. And what has been has not been working. It hasn't been working. You cannot find people who you're going to subjugate and keep them that way. You're not. Look at this past 3 to 4 years. They've been hiring, and the revolving doors keeps going. Between Tuesday to Thursday, when I'm out on the road and I hear it and I see it in some of the other places where they're talking about it, you hear on the radio, crew office needs conductors every tour, RDOs, late clears. You can't keep people, and it's for a reason. Your hiring practices, your work environment, the supervisors, the managers, the riding public, the equipment, the rules. The people have another option, and they're exercising it. And even if they don't have another option, their mental health and well-being is of the utmost importance to them. It is. And they're not taking it. They're not doing it. They're not going to sit around and be abused for decades. They're not going to do it. They get the job and they see what's going on here and they immediately pivot. They abuse sick time and do all of these things because they know they're leaving. They're probably abusing sick time and to take interviews and go, and they're out of here. They're out of here. It just is what it is. You have a retention problem here because of the way things are being conducted. That's just it. Yes, they are. They are still continuing to hire train operators from 16 and 17. I believe they're on another list, and I believe that particular list they're on is slated to be terminated in September. Management absolutely understands it creates a hostile environment. You have a lot of managers here who, if the system was running right, they would not have a job. They would not be promoted. There would be no need for them. Because if the job of a manager is to mitigate problems, if I create problems, whether they're big or small, I ensure my job safety, my job security, I ensure it. Because I have to be here to mitigate problems. I know plenty of people who were TSSs who went to superintendent and went back. The money's not adding up. The responsibility is 3 times as much. So why would you take a position that's not going to pay you as much, have you on call 24 hours a day, and not compensate you? And you're not going to get the best. That's what's happening now is you don't have the best supervisors because train operators, conductors, and train operators, conductors, and tower operators are not taking a promotion. The best of us are not taking a promotion. And you've got a lot of the worst of us who are taking a promotion to supervisor. And then when you have the best supervisors are not taking a promotion to superintendent. You don't have the best flowing upward because there is no proper compensation to flow upward. You don't have the best. You're not going to have the best until you do something about it. And you have to examine your hiring practices. You have to examine your rules. The rules of the job need to be updated. The rules act as if the environment is static and it's not progressing with the times. Now, when these rules are written and probably last time updated or even overlooked for things like this, were probably the 60s and 70s, where people were not abusing or putting their hands on the working populace here. We didn't have that. Back in 60s and 70s, early 80s, throughout the 80s, you had mental facilities that were inpatient facilities. That the people who were EDPs were in facilities being monitored. Now, I understand in those times, maybe back to the 50s, 40s, from then moving forward, there was a lot of abuse of said people, that populace that had to live there. Now, crushing and dismantling the whole system and kind of throwing them out into the world was not the answer, because they all sought shelter in the subway system, because it's harder to abuse somebody from that point of view if they're in a moving train. They can move, they can, get away from danger. And then the other part to that problem was the halfway house system, right? The halfway house system has been dismantled. So now you got people who are coming home from prison with that mentality, and EDPs who are homeless converging in homeless shelters, right? And that's a powder keg of its own. Now you got people, EDPs, who should be able to go into homeless shelters, but then you got people who are coming home from prison who have to be reacclimated to living life in free society, and it's not working because those people are preying upon EDPs, forcing them into our system. Right? Now we have to work in a system where we have these people who are flooding in, and now it's not optimal, and it's not just that we have to work in this system with people like that. Right? These people need constant care, but they can't receive constant care because the people who are those professionals who deal with that in the shelters can't have access to them, don't know where they are, and can't see them on it because they're afraid to be in these places. Right? So you have all these societal problems that kind of wash down, like we're the gutter of it all, and it comes and washes all the way down into us, and we have to be told to deal with it. Well, not all superintendents build morale, and if you look at how the rules are constructed, that's not even a piece for them. And you cannot build something you do not know how to identify. I know what you're talking about, though, Javon. I know what you're talking about, because we do have superintendents like Staccato, who was somebody who personally posted me when I came into the system. I known Staccato when he was a train operator, and character-wise and everything, he has not changed from the person I met 12 years ago. He's evolved as a human being, as a man, as a father, as a husband. He's evolved, but character-wise, he's been that same person since that time, and probably before I've known him. Right? So that's something that has to be inside of you, that you nurture and cultivate, and you want to bring it forth. If you're mean and nasty, if anybody was in here long enough, you remember T.D. Taylor from Parsons Archer J. There's no reason for him to be like that, but that's just who he is. Now, to walk around and to cultivate wickedness inside yourself is different. It is different. I don't know how you can do that. I don't know how you breed and foster wickedness inside of yourself and bring it to people who you don't know. Mr. Henry, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do that. And we got other supervisors who have a nasty, mean disposition, who you got to talk to them and let them understand that they're doing more than what their job allows. And that's it. You don't have to go fight them, and you just got to let them know that they're doing more than their job allows. And I'll give you a little secret on how to deal with them. Anytime you engage them, anytime you need to extract information, anything, question. Always your statements are in the form of a question. That way they can never refute that you just made a flat statement. You are always seeking information out of them. Even if you know something, put it in the form of a question. That way, if it's escalated, you go to the superintendent, and I was seeking information, because the supervisor is the last line of defense, is the person whose job it is to disseminate information. Always put them in a position to where they're answering a question. Don't make a statement to them. Always put it in the form of a question. That way, if anything gets escalated up, you can write in your G2 and stand on it. I was asking a question. I wanted to know what this was or what that was or how this worked. You got to put them on their back foot, especially if they are nasty, wicked supervisors. Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. If there's less teamwork, there's more backbiting, chances are you got people down here who will dime out their counterparts. And you ever heard of dry snitching? You got people who will dry snitch. They'll speak something going on within earshot to tantalize the supervisor or to tantalize the superintendent. And then you got some people who are fully drenched and they're just telling, right? Because their supervisor is their homeboy or whatever, and they forget that they are not the superintendent. They are not the supervisor. You have that happening all the time. You have that happening all the time. But that's my piggyback off of what Chris was saying, is that he's right. And we've been here long enough to see that there are a lot of wicked people here. And they are here because, in the capacity they are, because it brings them joy. I don't know why. I don't know why it would be that way. I don't know why did they figure that this place needs to be their hangout. Like this is their lunchroom for high school. And they need to be the big man or big woman on campus. I don't understand that. If you are that person, your personality shows that, it normally is inviting, and they're inviting of everyone, and they kind of bring the stress level in the room down. They bring some levity to the room, and they make the working environment a little bit more comfortable to be in. You can see that all the time by who congregates with who congregates around people, who stays around people, who stays in contact with certain people. You can see that all the time. The people who engage everybody, who want the environment to be a lot less caustic, to be more comfortable, because you do your best work when you're not stressed. You do your best work when you're comfortable. You do your best. You give the best to your day when you're at ease, when you can process, when you're not under duress. You do your best at that, in those moments. All right? You do your very best. All right. It is currently 2025. Next year, our contract is up. And looking at it, and the situation we're in, and the way transit is already trying to set the stage, because right now we have Jan Oliva talking about Omni is the best thing, and it's doing this and it's doing that. Watch that narrative. Watch that narrative, because he's saying it's doing great, right? But they're not talking about how or if the fare is still being paid. They're just talking about the seamlessness of Omni, right? And we've seen news reports that Omni is having problems dealing with people's cards and their card information and how it's being worked. We're seeing that, right? Omni working great doesn't mean the system is being paid. So let's not conflate the two. Let's not compare the two. Don't match them up. Whether technology is working is one thing. Whether the system is being paid is another. That's the component we have to hold on to, because when it comes contract time, they always cry broke. They always cry deficit. They always cry under budget. And in the same breath, they'll turn around and say that the interface to get people to get them in the system and around with the system is up to par, working properly. So if they can tell you today that the system is working properly, they can also tell you if there's a deficit, if there are people still hopping the turnstile, if there are people still doing the same things and not paying. They can put that out as well, right? Don't let them fool you. Don't let them fool you. And don't buy into one argument. Challenge them on the arguments that pertain to you, right? Contract time is coming. It is coming. In last contract was the best opportunity we had to raid the larder, right? To go in the pantry and take everything we could. And we missed that opportunity. We missed that opportunity. I think I've spoken about this previously as to why we missed the opportunity, but we missed it. I won't rehash that right now. I don't think this is a good time to be sidetracked with that. We've missed it and we've lost that opportunity, but we haven't lost the time. The time period is still here. We still are in that time. We're still, what was happening back then is still reverberating into the future. We're still feeling it. We're still under those things. So it's time that we start thinking about what we want and how we want it. And I think most of all, we need to start thinking about when and how we negotiate and what we negotiate contractually for and what doesn't need to be put in the contract. Because remember, when you negotiate a contract and you're putting all these things on the table, you're pitting one thing against the other, right? So if this contract, I firmly believe our contract should be money, benefits, and quality of life. Things that directly pertain to the job. I'm a train operator. Things that directly pertain to me, an RTO between train operator conductor, do not necessarily need to be negotiated at contract time. That's just my belief. A lot of those things that are specific to RTO do not need to be negotiated in the realm of the contract, because you can have agreements done outside of the contract that will now fall inside. We don't need to put everything on the table for us to have to pick and choose what we want, right? Certain things should be on the table, and things that are department specific should be a side deal. That should not have any bearing on the money you have or the money you make. See, that's, Ms. Mendez, that's a problem I have. Is that when I served on the Eboard and I served with Giassi Snuggs, I served with David Modest, I served with Mike Taylor, we were there explicitly for RTO. We were there explicitly for RTO. Every time, it would be a lot of times people would be mad with us in a room because we held up meetings to get understanding, because us four people stayed in the field. We worked in the field all the time, and we were always engaged. So we wouldn't leave meetings until we got a definitive answer or a way to find a definitive answer, because we were forward facing to the membership. We were always there to the membership. We were always available to the membership, right? And we were kind of browbeat for it because we would hold up meetings, slow meetings down, because in many ways there were meetings held before our Eboard meeting, and everybody who came in was already on one accord. They already knew what was going to go on in that meeting. And it was only a few people who didn't know what was going to go on in that meeting. And we all had questions, and we all examined things, and we all were very inquisitive about what it meant, or what this was going to, how this was going to affect the membership, right? And it was purposefully done because before I was in there in that particular group, we had Nuke McLaren and oh Jesus, why am I forgetting her name? Oh Jesus, I'll get back to you. But we had another group prior to us who informed the membership as well, right? And before that, I never knew who was on the e-board or what they were doing or what the meetings were about or what. I didn't know. And when we went in there, we made it our purpose. That's what sparked me to make lives, is to try to inform everybody and get the information out, because not everybody can go to meetings, unfortunately, right? And if I just go bring it to a meeting, it's not really disseminated to everybody. I didn't do my best to get it to everybody. So that's why I do the meetings. I know that for a fact. I know the people in TA Surface. You know, my kid's godfather is from TA Surface, you know, and he's a bus operator, and I see it, and I think it's unfortunate because the e-board is your direct voice as a membership. The e-board members are like a bullhorn. They're there to amplify what's going on in the field. And to me, that's a disservice to be in lockstep with the administration only. I understand that in certain capacities, when you're around politicians, it's better to be in lockstep. And if you don't have anything that you want to say that can be positive, just be quiet in those instances and observe and take in the information. But I don't want to embarrass the administration of the union. If we're having an internal fight, that fight is between us. If me and my brother are fighting, that's not for everybody to see. That's how I view it. So if we're in an administration and we're alone, I can voice my grievances. I can voice my disdain. But if we're out in public, I shelve that. I'm going to keep that back. Right? When I do the lives for it to pertain to us. Right? I want it to pertain to us. And it's unfortunate that sometimes the lives are shared and it goes other places. But when I'm speaking to us. I'm not trying to speak to appease other politicians. I'm not speaking for them. I'm speaking for us, because we are more powerful when we are activated and when we're in lockstep, right? We don't have to like each other. You don't like everybody in your family, right? So I don't see that you're going to like everybody here. But when it comes to the job and how we progress and how we provide for our families, we should be in lockstep with that. We should be in a position to where we can put that to the side and we can go fight for what we need. And then we can go back to bickering amongst ourselves, right? Even if we have to bicker, but that's human nature. Those are things that happen. But when it comes to what we're doing to progress and move our lives forward and gain our monies and all these things, that's what I want from us. Not Miss Black, not necessarily. You when you negotiate a contract, you can normally the law is the standard. But if you so choose, you can negotiate below the standard of law. You can do that. I don't necessarily understand that, and sometimes we do that because it may affect another part of the contract or another so-called amenity that's due to us. But we have the ability, when you negotiate a contract, you can negotiate below the limit of the law. You have that opportunity and that right. You can do that. but remember, it's what you negotiate for, right? We have used that, and we have done that in the past, and we've negotiated below the limit of the law, and that's something unfortunate. I don't agree with it, but that's something that we have done, right? That's something that has been done before. Like I said, we got a contract coming up in the future. Please think about what you need in your home when it comes to contract time. I know some people want amenities on the job, but think about how what you do on the job affects your home first. Monies, benefits, get those things locked in, and then we can figure out later on, or in side letters or agreements for things for the job. If it doesn't pertain to safety, same thing like the union. Chris just put this up maybe a week or two ago when we had the first heat wave, that we all know we come in to do our jobs and we want to do them professionally. But if the weather is not permitting, do not take a hot train. If the train is hot in your car, in your cab, do not take it. If as a conductor, both positions are hot, that train is out of service. You cannot work like that. Train operators, if that car or that cab you're in is hot, do not operate it. Do not operate it. If that train is blowing hot air on you and the RCI comes in and goes, oh, well, the passenger car is cold, that passenger car has nothing to do with you. You're separated from that cab. If your cab is hot and 10, 20 stops out, you pass out, they're going to blame you. They're going to try to blame you and go, you should have been more aware and you should have voiced this and voiced that. Once you get in on the stand, you get into your position, and if it is not up to par, do not take that train out. Don't take the train out. If that train is not operating properly, do not take that train out. Train operators, another thing, be aware. Please try to look. I know a lot of us work in the daylight, and it's very hard if you're not underground to see the motor fault light. But if you see 2 back-to-back motor fault lights, call that in. Have an RCI come. If you see 3 on one consist, normally they take that train out of service. If you see that. And that's been happening with the older equipment. If you're on the Broadway line in the B division, the N, the Q, the W, a lot of these 46s, some of the lights are not even functioning. And you can have multiple motors out and not know it because the light is not functioning. Also, you're not put the amp meter, which will show you whether or not that car is pulling energy, is not in view for the train operator. You have to turn around and look at the amp meter behind your shoulder to see, because sometimes a dead car in the train operator's position will present itself like flats, and you'll hear the wheels slapping the rails, clackety, 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 clack. If the car is getting power and you're hearing that noise, you have flats. But if the car is moving without power, you're going to get the same sound, but you're going to call it in as flats. The RCI is going to come and tell you to take power and tell you, oh, your car is dead. That's why you hear that sound. And then normally that RCI is going to walk through the car, walk through the consist, and try to see if you have other dead cars. If they find 2 back-to-back, or if they find 3 on one consist, they're normally telling you to take that train out of service. But you cannot see that yellow fault light, because sometimes the bulb is blown, or the lens is blacked out, or there is no bulb there. And you cannot see that there's a fault in those cars. So train operators, please be aware. When you're braking in those cars, you normally get a tug-of-war type of thing. You take brake, and because there are cars behind you that are not taking brake at the same time, you get a pullback. And as you come to release brake to smooth your stop out, you get a push forward. You get this kind of jerking motion because the cars are not aligned and they're not in proper working order. Also, the propulsion reset used to be used back in the day. When I came in, when you did a put in on the train or 46, you would hold the propulsion reset and you would realign the motors. You take a point and hold it till it activated and then went right back in the coast, because you want all the motors to align in one direction. That way when the train dumps, they've realigned. That's not happening because you don't know if those two pieces were joined and now they're not aligned properly. So that's something that they shouldn't do. That's something that they shouldn't do. And I believe the probationaries know, but they're in a position where they're scared. A lot of the times people do things that they shouldn't do because they're scared to deal with RCC or OCC, because OCC's on the radio being very demanding, being very belligerent, and it happens. I hear it on the radio sometimes. I wish they wouldn't do that because you're putting your life in jeopardy. We do right to know for that specific reason. You don't know where the blood started or stopped. You don't know where the bodily fluid started or stopped. You can get hepatitis C being exposed to some of this stuff, right? And it's unfortunate because you can get an illness that will linger with you for a while, right? And it can compromise your health, right? So if you come across it, re-instruct the probies. And if the probies are working with somebody who knows better, you got to get it to senior person. And the senior person can't go, oh, well, they told me, or they wanted to do it anyway. They're going to put somebody in jeopardy for doing that. Because then it's going to cause, oh, why is it taking so long? Conductor or train operator, you're not helping your partner? It shouldn't be done. I know for a fact that, when you do refuse or they'll call a supervisor on RCI, and sometimes they will do it. I don't know why. Because they're no different. They're human just like we are. I don't know why. But some of them do these things. I don't know why they do it, but some of them do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. If I don't have the PPE, I'm not doing it. I see car cleaners who will see certain things and go, I can't clean that without such and such PPE. And if it's not in the terminal, so be it. You ultimately are responsible for your safety, your health, and your well-being. Exercise your right. Exercise your right. You have to exercise your right. With regard to the current administration, I see in a couple chats and stuff like that people they're very critical, right? But you also have to realize that this particular administration is working far shorthanded than any other administration. And if you don't like that, voice your opinion for them to have more reps on duty, for them to have more reps who are capable and out there to do the job. You don't have the same number of people as prior administrations. So you can complain all you want, but if your administration is shorthanded and you know it, I don't want to say your complaints are invalid, but you're complaining for something that can be fixed. Complain about the fix. Get it fixed, and then complain about if there's not the work is not being done. I don't care who you like and what you like. You got to call it the same way you would call it for anybody else. If the current administration is understaffed, and you know it, which most of the people who I see complaining know that the current administration is understaffed. why are you complaining as though they have the same numbers as other administrations? I have a problem with that. That you want more for less. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. If this administration had the same amount or the same numbers as prior administrations and they were not doing the work, your complaints would be valid. But if you have a complaint because you personally don't like somebody or you don't like their character and you're just against them just for the hell of being against them, you're the problem. You're not contributing to the solution because you want miracles, knowing that other administrations didn't get miracles because they had fewer people. They got things done, or they were able to get things done or move things forward because of the amount of numbers they had. There were certain positions and certain people able to concentrate solely on the tenets of their job. They weren't doing double and triple duty. They were not. But you eliminate that fact and you take that off the board to try to make it seem as though somebody is less than and another administration was better than. And you know for a fact that that's not the case. You know for a fact that that's not the case. Right? I don't call Trammell and I don't call Chris Drummond and I don't call Lamont Burke unless I need an answer or some help for something. I hardly call it. I treat Trammell like my brother. And we hardly socialize because I see the amount of work that has to be done, that has to be taken up. It's not, I can't consciously know that he's being overwhelmed on purpose and think that I'm going to call and we're just going to kick back and chill out all the time. Right? I'm not going to do that. I know that there's times where he has to decompress. Right? And he may not even like that I had that position. Right? But I see it from a different perspective that I don't want anybody to take anything away from them or him. And I know quite a few people who I like on the administration. Some people will hold over. Some people were personal friends of mine. And I'm not going to engage them because I know that I don't want to be somebody who I can consciously go, all right, maybe it was my phone call that, or me interacting or say, let's go hang out, that took away from anything. I don't want to do that. And I may not be in a position when I am doing that, but I'm conscious that I don't want them to be criticized for any deficiency because somebody may say, oh, well, I saw them hanging out, and I don't want to be criticized for that because everybody who's in there that I see so far wants to make sure it works. They want to make sure that we have what we need out in the field. They want to do better for us. They want to put us in a better position, and I'm wholeheartedly for that. Right? I don't want to see us in a deficient position. I don't want to see us being held back from anything. I want to see us having the best for ourselves. And I'm purposely and consciously aware of that. Right? I see Dominic Culp a lot, and I engage him. I get information. We trade information. Sometimes there's some things that may not have been seen, or like on my line around the DeKalb area and around Prince to 14th. There have been a lot of signal problems and rail problems going on. And sometimes you get to the beginning, it happens that you hear it and you know what's going on, and the reps sometimes don't know that that's what's going on. So if I see him, I let him know, listen, this has been ongoing, right? Because you never know who is going to try to write it up or, try to blame the TO or the train crew for something that's going on, and it's an error. So if I can help to avoid getting discipline even put on the table or talked about, I try to do my best to let them know that the signal area, that signal problem in this particular area for 3 stations has been ongoing. I don't know if it's gotten back to them. I may be reiterating something that they already know, but I feel better in letting them know that this is what's going on. That way they can say, well, we got people in the field who've communicated these things to us, right? And that's what needs to be done as well. If you know something is going on, help. Let that be known. If you're behind a train experiencing signal problems, don't try to rush past or get past them. See if you can move through there slow enough, or to see if it can recreate, or to see if you can observe that it's going on. You're helping your brother and sister out, right? You're taking that stress and that onus off of them, because they will never take the signals out of service. They'll never take the track out of service. They won't do that. They'll take the operator and the conductor out of service, right? But if we can avoid that, let's avoid that. Okay? I'm going to try to make this at least a monthly or bi-monthly thing. If you want me to talk about something, or if you want me to seek some information to speak about, just hit me up either in the direct messages, or just pin it to this live, or just bring it back up and ask a question in the group. If you in progressive action team, just address it to me if you want to, and I'll take note of it, and I'll try to get that answer and make a live and try to answer some questions. I know that sometimes it is a little hard to gain hold of the reps, because they are working double duty, triple duty sometimes. So don't be discouraged. Just let's see if we can find another way to get the answers we need. Okay? So in the future, I'm going to try to at least try to do a live twice a month if I can. If there's nothing to speak about, I won't do a live. If there's something you want me to speak about, I will do a live. Just see if you can get it to me, and we'll go forward from there. But I'm back. I never went anywhere. I just wasn't as vocal or pronounced as I was before. But I'm not going to hide. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. All right. See you guys later. Take it easy.